So we got paid out our YieldMax ETF distributions, and I'm going to go in to update my spreadsheet. And for this update, I will be using my brand new Rev 3 spreadsheet. And I also want to point out one of the options that I had. It was a call option on one of the ETFs that was assigned, and those shares were taken away. And it was an early assignment too. So stick around and we'll go over those. Hello my friends, this is Legend. So today we're going to update my spreadsheet to find out where my real price per share is for each of my positions of these high yield ETFs. And we will be using my new stock tracker spreadsheet Rev 3. I think I finally got it to a point where I can send it out. So it is going to be available in the Discord, and that link will be in the descriptions below. So we'll update the spreadsheet using this new Rev 3. I'll quickly go over some of the changes in that Rev 3. But before we get into that, if you don't mind, hit that like button. If you enjoy this kind of content, it'd be much appreciated. So let's just go ahead and we'll jump right into that spreadsheet. I'm going to do a quick overview of just what it does show you, what it does provide for you, and some of the changes from the Rev 2. All right, so to start it off right here, you can see this here looks somewhat familiar, right? And the reason I do try to keep the entry points the same is just because if you already have this sheet, say a Rev 2 of this sheet, it just makes it a little easier to update it, right? Because then all you have to do is just highlight the gray cells right here. You do your copy and you paste it right into the new sheet, enter in the ticker symbol, and that's all there is. Everything else will update and carry over. So that just makes things a whole lot simpler if you decide to get the Rev 3 version. So it still does calculate the total number of shares, your purchased share price average, and that's just off the purchases. That is different than the real price per share average, all right? Because the real price per share average does take into account your total invested and the amount that you have earned, which then helps to calculate an adjusted capital invested, and then that divided by the number of shares will provide you with that real price per share. And one of the things I have changed or added here is this estimated percent distribution earned per payout, okay? And that is the average of this new column that I have here. And this new column is basically the distribution percentage rate. And that is using the amount that you're earning and what percentage of the actual stock price that is at the time of that X date. And the price that it's using, of course, is the day before the X date, because that is the price before the distribution comes out. So that is basically that percentage of the price amount that you did earn in distributions. And this here is just an average of these numbers through here. Okay, so that's just an average payout per distribution, the percentage of that. I've also added a button here where you can flip this from open to closed. Okay, so if you are selling out of your position, you can then flip this to closed, and it will then calculate your end total gain or loss of this position. And this will also take into account any capital gain that you did earn versus only just showing the distributions that you've earned. And once you flip that to close, or once you close this out, you would actually go in, you would put your date, you would put in your price, and then you're going to put in your minus, in my case would be 400 shares, so that will actually give you a negative amount that you've spent here. And this field up here where it says account status currently is open, that will change, and then give you the amount that you would actually have made in that position. And all of this is calculated for you. I tried to make it very simple and user friendly. And also, I was trying to incorporate a lot of your comments that you have requested. There's been several people who were asking for the sheet to provide some of the information they were looking for. And in this case, one of the comments was to add a open and closed button here so that when they closed it out, they would know exactly how much they made in that position. So that's going to take into account the distributions along with any capital that you've made or lost, right? So that will give you your ending balance, and which is a good thing to see. And of course, as you can see, this is the Rev 3. And on the previous sheets, you'll see that that is a Rev 2. So that's how you'll know which revision you are in. One of the other changes I did make was I did adjust this distribution average. And this is the average of our distribution payouts, okay? And this is the distribution per share that they're paying out. Before, it was the average of all of these, right? And that kind of throws it off a bit because if the price continues to drop, so does the distribution. And taking the average of the overall is not really a true good number to use so that you can calculate how many more distributions you need to get it paid off. But it will take the average of those last 4 distributions. It'll calculate that for you. It will also then tell you how many more distributions you need for that payoff. But even at that 16 cents, I'm only needing about 39 more payments, and that's 39 weeks, right? So in 39 weeks, at that average, I should be able to get CONY paid off. Now, if the distributions drop or continue to lower, then of course that distribution number here for that payoff will change, right? Because then your average is going to change. So keep that in mind when you're looking at that number. We still have the options side over here. Nothing changed here. This is pretty much where you just fill it in and it just grabs these numbers off of that amount earned and uses it to fill in the premium earned up here in our summary table here at the top. So that's some of the changes that I've made on this sheet, but that's not all, okay? I have added a few other things, and I think this is going to be a very helpful tool that I've added to these sheets. So what I'm talking about is a stock portfolio overview right here, right? So this is the overview of all those sheets. Now all those sheets are right through here. There's my CONY, that's PLTY, NVDY, ULTY, and you can have up to 20, okay? I've got sheets all the way up to 20. Now, if you have more than that, you may need to pare back a little bit. I think I have too many, and I've got, I think, 16. Yeah, I've got 16, and I honestly think I have too many. And I'm looking to probably start selling off some of them, especially the ones that are just going to take too long to get paid off. But if we go back to our stock portfolio overview right here, you can see that is exactly what this does. It will auto-generate right here. You don't have to type in the start date. It will look through your sheets and it will find when you first started buying a share of whichever one that you started off with. So it will start with that start date. So that'll auto-populate for you. It'll also give you your market value of the existing stocks. It'll give you the total distributions you've earned right here, your capital that you have invested, and of course, if you were to sell all of those ETFs that you currently have at the market price of each one, that is what you would actually make. In my case, if I just got out of everything, I would make $17,613. Now the distributions per capital is down 48%, and that is exactly what it states here. It's just the amount of distributions you've earned divided by the capital you've spent. It does not take into account of the actual stock price or the ETF price of the ETFs that you have. This one down here does, right? This one does, because it is selling them at the market price of each one. So though I am down 48% of the distributions per capital spent, if I were to sell off everything, I would make 12%, right? And that is off of selling it at that market price. Now, you do not have to populate anything through here. All of this is auto-populated. All you have to do is fill in your sheets just the same as you have been doing. You have your ticker symbol, you enter in your stock purchases, and then you enter in your individual distributions right here, and any option premium, of course, over here that you may be in. And if you're not, then you don't have to worry about that. But if you enter in those dark gray cells, that is all you have to do. And you do that for each one, and it will automatically populate this summary page for you. So you can see right here, there's CONY and PLTY and NVDY. All this is populated for you. It tells you the total number of shares you have. It gives you the market price, and that's the current market price, the market value, and that's basically the number of shares times the market price. It gives you your total distributions of each, your total capital invested of each, and of course your gain and loss if sold at the current price. Now you can see it turns red if you're in a loss, and it's green if you would actually earn money off of that sell. The purchase per share price, now that is the average purchase share price, not your real price per share, but just the average of the purchases that you've made. It provides that in this row, and this one is your real price per share. And this is the one that I'm always preaching about, right? This is the real number that I look at. If it's red, that means your real price per share is currently over the market price right here, okay? And as you can see, my real price per share being $6.44 and the market price being $5.66. Therefore, it is red because if I were to sell my shares, I would lose money. I would lose $351 versus on PLTY, I will make $1,800, okay? And then it just spits out a result here if your real price per share is above the market or if it's under the market price, and your percentage that you still have left at risk. And then also just the last piece right here, it does provide you how many estimated distributions you need for that payoff. Now that number will change depending on the distribution per share of the ETF. If it changes, so does these numbers here, okay? So this is only true using that average of the last 4 distributions. Just keep that in mind. And as you can see, it just scrolls right over, and there's all my positions. All nicely done, all nicely in one page. Quickly look, see what is there, and it can help you to better manage each one. And of course, there's the grand totals for those rows there. So I think that's a pretty nice little adder for the Rev 3. But just to add one more thing, let's take a look at the last piece that I have added for the Rev 3 version. And that is charts. Everybody likes to look at a chart. So that's what I added to this. It will do the distributions per month versus the date. Okay, so these are your distribution side here, and here is the months. It's going to use all of the ETFs that you have. It's going to add them up, and it's going to assign it to that correct date for that month, right? And you can see that it will give you a nice little chart right here. That is a monthly one, and this over here is the yearly chart. So it's just a quick little nice view of how you're doing in these ETFs. So when you update your stock tracker sheets, you enter in all your information, it will automatically go in, it will update the summary page and your income charts. So I think those are pretty nice little features to have for the Rev 3. So I think I went over pretty extensively of some of the changes that we have here on the Rev 3. But I do want to go in and update these sheets with the new distributions to find out what my real price per share is for each now. Now for these, I have already entered in that distribution per share right here, right? So I've already entered it in for each one of these just to help speed it along. And of course, as a reminder, if you're interested in the Rev 3 stock tracker sheets, then of course, check out my Discord link in the description where you can join, get the Rev 3 sheets along with my stock purchase notifications. I will be putting my receipts in the Discord showing some of the stocks that I am in, some of the trades that I'm making, options that I'm doing, and if I'm doing any day trades, I'm putting them in there as well. So I'm trying to be able to provide a good bit of information and hopefully some help within the Discord. So let's just go ahead and jump right on into this and let's find out what my real price per share is now. Well, before I enter in my distribution right here, I did make a buy for CONY because CONY was dropping, right? And I had a purchase price in there at that $5.99. So I ended up buying 100 shares at $5.99. And of course it did come down a bit more, but I want to enter in my purchase here at 11.4, and that was at $5.99 for 100 shares. So my real price per share, even off of that purchase, because it is under my real price per share, that $5.99 is under $6.44. So that will help lower that real price per share. Not by much, I'm sure, but it will help bring it down. So that purchase will drop that real price per share down to $6.35. And now I get to enter in a distribution and I can count all shares before 11.6. Well, that purchase was on 11.4, so I get to count all my shares. So instead of 400 shares, I now get to count 500 shares. So that real price per share from $6.35 now drops to $6.26. And yes, it is still above the current price. But I am hoping that CONY or Bitcoin can actually start leveling off and start moving back up, and then CONY can start moving back up as well. But while it's down, I can continue to buy if I would like to help lower that real price per share so that whenever it does turn around, I'll then be in the green. And that's just how I'm playing these ETFs. All right, so we got next is PLTY. And for PLTY, I have not made any purchases. So the number of shares would be 37. So my real price per share of $9.33 now becomes $8.11. And that is awesome, right? You can see that the current price is $57.99. I am just knocking this one down at a real price per share of $8.11. You can see that the new distribution up here is a little closer to what we should expect. We've seen some 74, 73, $1.20, and $1.20, and that average being 98 cents. That helps to get us a little bit closer to what is a real average distribution amount. And according to that, I only need 8 more distributions before I get PLTY paid off. So as long as I earn that 98 cents or more, this should get paid off in 8 more weeks. So that is a wonderful thing, right? PLTY has been paying out very nice. I only wish I had more in it. But that's okay. Once it's paid off, I can then roll those distributions right in if I would like, up my shares, and still be using house money, right? I will not be using any of my personal cash. I would only be using the gains that I would be receiving from those distributions, as I will have earned back all of my original and reinvested capital in the way of distributions, right? And that to me is how you play these high yield ETFs. So super excited about PLTY. That might be my next one that I end up getting paid off. Oh, I am so excited. And oops, I might have gave something away if you were listening. But moving on, we've got NVDY. And for NVDY, I've got a real price per share of $13.70, current price being 15.33. So currently I'm in the good so far. And let's enter in that distribution of 71 shares. And that 71 shares will change that real price per share from 13.70 down to 13.38. And you can see that the number of distributions is around 73 more distributions before I can get NVDY paid off. So I've got a while, but I'm moving in the right direction. ULTY. So ULTY, as it was dropping, I did put a buy order in there. And I put a buy order in there at 465, and it went through on 11.5. And that buy order, like I said, 4.65. How many shares? That was a total of 50 more shares. So since 465, that buy order here is below 478, that will help lower it. But keep in mind that 465, 478, not much difference, right? So as far as lowering it, it's not going to lower it much. So even off of that purchase, it goes from 478 down to 474. I'll take it. Now, how many shares can I count? I made a purchase on 11.5, but the distribution X date is on 11.5. So I cannot count those 50 shares, right? I can only count the shares that are before 11.5. So I have to take the total amount and subtract off those 50 shares. So that's 150 shares that I get to count for that distribution. Those next 50 will be able to be counted for the next week though. So that 474 real price per share now goes to 469. Man, bringing it on down, right? Bringing it on down. But as you can see, I've still got close to a year before I'd actually get this paid off, because that's 54 weeks of distributions. Now, once it's paid off, then everything coming in is free and clear. And this is utilizing a distribution average of about 8 cents. And moving on to my favorite, and that's MSTY. And why is it my favorite? Well, because as you can see, my real price per share being 10 cents. And if you picked up on my little giveaway earlier, when I said that PLTY might be my second one I get paid off, that's because my first one is going to be MSTY. Super excited here. And once we enter that in, we're going to get to see what happens up here at the top, because this has always said NA for the estimated number of shares and the payoff here. And that's because I don't have any of them paid off until now. So let's enter in that distribution. And that distribution amount for MSTY was about 16 cents here, right? And I get to count 475 shares. Now, here we go. So excited about this one. And I did do a little spoiler video previously. So if you saw that, you already know what's going to happen here. But for those who missed it, here we go. So that real price per share from 10 cents goes to green with a minus 7 cents. Now, why is it minus? Well, because the positive is how much you actually still have at risk per share. The minus is under what you actually have at risk, meaning I'm making profit now, right? That's profit. When you buy these ETFs and you're earning that distribution every week, that doesn't mean that you're earning profit, right? Because you did pay out money for those shares. And yes, you are earning a distribution, but until your distribution amount exceeds how much you've invested, and that's how much you invested plus your reinvestments plus any drips or anything, right? This total number of capital that you have spent. Once this value is above that, then you're in the money. Now for me, I count the distributions and premium I've earned for this position because it is still all on MSTY. And if I get signed those shares, that's going to affect my capital and everything else anyway. So I count that premium. So that's where you can see this total here is going to exceed that capital invested. And that is why it is now green. Super excited there. Now, of course, the count status still says open because I have not closed the account. So that's just going to stay as open. The last 4 distributions, I'm showing an average of about 29 cents. And you can see now this says paid off. It doesn't say one more distribution or anything. It now says paid off. So as long as I do not use more than what is in this field right here, this position will stay paid off. So this value here will tell you how much you can actually spend and keep it at a paid off status with no risk, as you would have none of your money invested. Only your gains, if you want to be accurate about it, because if you are buying shares with the gains that you're getting from your distributions after it's paid off, then technically that is what you are risking. But you're not risking any of your personal money, only the gains that you have been receiving if you're reinvesting those gains. But as you can see, after that, I have a total of $33.70 that I can spend. And at the current price, looks like I can get about 3 shares. And this will round down so that you do not exceed the amount that you have available for purchases. So I can go in and purchase shares as long as I do not exceed the $33.70 here. I will stay as paid off status. And I definitely do not want to move back into risk. Once it's paid off, it stays paid off in my method. So super excited about MSTY getting it paid off. Now let's move on. And we've got SMCY. And SMCY, I can put in a total of 30 shares. So that $12.16 real price per share now goes to $11.83. Now notice the current price has dropped a little bit. So it is at $11.45. But look, just from that distribution, it did lower my real price per share. So instead of me being from that $12 and some odd cents away from that $11.45, I am now $11.83 versus the current price of $11.45, which puts me in a little bit better position. If SMCY moves back up to 12 bucks, I'm back in the green, right? And when I say I'm back in the green, that only means if I were to sell the shares at the current price, I would make money. Because since it is above that current price, if I were to sell my shares at the current price, I will lose $11.37. Okay? So that's what I mean by I'm in the green. But now once it's paid off, then I'm actually earning money, right? But until it gets paid off, I'm not really earning anything. I'm just working to get to that point to where it can then start paying me to own it, just like where I'm at in MSTY. AMDY, I can enter in the full number of 820 shares. So that real price per share of $7.33 now becomes $7.21. And with the current price of $9.02, I'm sitting pretty nice with that one. Now we've got YMAX. And for YMAX, I can enter in 758 shares. And that real price per share goes from $8.79 down to $8.62. I just keep knocking it down, staying ahead of that current price. Even if it does come down, I'm still trying to stay ahead of it. By using my method, it gives me the best chance of doing so. For BIGY, I can enter in the full 11 shares, and that real price per share of $45.85 now becomes $45.31. SOXY, I can enter in 9 shares, $45.63 real price per share now becomes $45.01. Staying ahead of the current price, so that one is doing just fine. Now we're moving over to the round hill. If you ever want to know what the name of it is, that is another little adder I did add, and that's the name of it right here. When you enter the ticker symbol, it will spit out the name of that ETF as well, just so that you know what it is, right? So in this case, this one's a round hill. For QDTE, I can enter in 155 shares. So the $28.57 real price per share now becomes $28.37. XDTE, I can enter in the big 5 shares. So $39.29 real price per share now becomes $39.08. It's still okay. IWMY, 551 shares with a real price per share of $17.53, now becomes $17.37. It's also below the current price, so I'm okay with this one as well. QQQY, enter in 551 shares, so the real price per share of $22.23 now becomes $22.06. So even though the price may be moving down, I'm moving it down further, trying to stay ahead of any drops that it may do. And that's the whole point of my method. WDTE, 540 shares. That changes my real price per share of $28.85 down to $28.65. And last but not least, JEPQ. Now, JEPQ is the one that I actually ended up getting assigned, okay? And what I mean is this call that I did roll. I rolled this 56 call out to November the 21st. Now, this is November the 9th currently, and it's on the weekend. So we have not made it to the 21st. But at any point that the actual ETF price exceeds or goes beyond your strike price, you could get called away on those shares. And this is a perfect example. I had a $56 call for November the 21st, and it's not November 21st yet. It's November 9th, but they got called away early. Why would I get called away early? Sometimes it has to do with an event coming up. A lot of times it has to do with any kind of distribution or dividend payout. And that is the reason why I lost those shares. And I had to sell those shares, or those shares were taken from me at $56 per share. And one thing I do want to point out, and if you don't know, if your shares are taken away before that X date, then of course those shares will be removed from your account, and therefore you will not earn the distribution for those shares. Now, the part of it that I didn't realize is that even after hours and all the way up to the market open of the X date, if those shares are taken away, you do not earn that distribution. And what do I mean here? Well, the distribution here is on 11/3. Okay, I've already got it right here, 11/3. Those shares were taken away on 11/3 as well, but at 4 a.m. in the morning. And that is when pre-market opens. And at that time, JEPQ was a little higher, right? Around that 11/3. And as you can see right here on the chart, I've got the line right here at 11/3, and it was around 58.70 area. Okay, so they took my shares at 56. And they did it because they wanted that distribution of 47 cents per share. Okay? And like I said, they actually did it on the X date, right? But it was before market open. So I wanted to make sure that you are aware of that, as I'm not sure I was. But I did look it up, and sure enough, anytime before market open of the X date, if those shares are called away, then you will not receive that distribution. So for that assignment here, and that has to do with this right here, right? For that assignment, I'm going to put in 11/2 as that date. And that's just because if I was to look back on this later, I'm not going to remember that this was 11/3, but it was on the pre-market, right? So I could even state that basically these are shares that were taken away before market open. And so that I can make sure I account for my distribution payouts correctly, I'm going to enter in 11/2 for that date. Now, I didn't have to go through exactly why and everything, but I thought that was very important to know just in case you weren't aware of that as well. And that is, your shares can be taken away all the way up to the market open of the X date. So, very interesting, and I learned a little this week as well. So those shares that got called away were at $56 per share. And how many shares? It was one contract, and one contract is 100 shares. And since they're taken away, I enter in a negative 100 shares. So what's that going to do to my real price per share? Well, I'm selling them So this is going to drop. It's actually going to help me, but it's also going to remove 100 shares from my 147 shares, and therefore I only earn a distribution of 47 shares. But let's see what that real price per share is now. Boom, $4.18. So that put me at a really good spot as far as in the current price per share, right? Because the current price per share of JEPQ is at $57.71. So according to that, I now only need 9 more payouts before I can get JEPQ paid off. And at that point, then I can start increasing my share count again using the amount that it tells me that I can use and keep it as a paid off status. So for me, that is my goal. Get them paid off. And then if I want to increase the share count, I can do it using the YieldMax money. I no longer have any of my money invested. But we also get to enter in that distribution right here. And it's everything before 11.3. Well, that includes this, right? And that's the reason I made that 11.2, so that when you're looking at it, it's nice and clear. So everything before that, I can count all shares. And all shares would be 47 shares. Not 147, but 47, right? And that's this number right up here. So at 47 shares, my real price per share of $4.18 now becomes $3.71. Love it. So as you can see, if I were to sell out of JEPQ at the current moment, I would make $2,500. Really not too bad. I'll take that. That's more than I had before. I am getting my capital paid back to me. And once it's all paid back, then I'm making money. So since this option is now done as I was assigned, I'm going to change that to red, and then I strike through that wording. I still made the premium. That's mine to keep no matter what happens. But the contract is now done. And just for my notes, I like to use this little column right here. I like to just type in my notes into this section. And there you go. And that just helps me to see, oh, okay, I was assigned a call at 56. And that's why I have the negative shares right here. And if I wanted to look further into it, I can look over here and I can see, oh, I had a call right here. And this is the one that was assigned. So that is updating the sheets right there. You go through the stock tracker sheets, you update them with your updated information, and then you can go back and then you can look at the portfolio overview or your summary page here. And as you can see, looky, so excited to see that, right? Paid off. MSTY. Love it. So see, I did not have to do that. It told me, it calculates it, it spits out the information for me, and it's a great thing. And you can see all those number of payments down here at the bottom. That's how many more payments it's going to take to get it paid off. Now, some of these that are some really high numbers, I may look in to see whether or not I want to keep those or not, right? Because I can sell it and invest it into something different. So tell me what you think about the new sheets here. Are you seeing some advantage of having this summary page? I think it's a good little page to have, as it can help you to quickly look over all of the positions you have and to see really which ones you want to focus on, or if there are any that you need to trim. I think it's just nice to have it all together in one area. So I think I'm gonna wrap it up right there. Again, if you would like to get this Rev 3, it will be available in my Discord, which you can find a link to that in the description. So as always, I am not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. Please do your own due diligence before you get into any stock plays. And until next time, Legend out.